Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Brian Bride, Director of Payroll Operations. Brian, how long have you worked at Kaizen?
I've worked at Kaizen for a year and 3 months.
Okay. And do you remember what it was like when you applied here?
Yeah, well, I have a little higher level. So I just submitted an application through LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And one of the partners called me back pretty quickly. So I didn't really go through some of the...
What I heard is you just took the back door and cheated.
Nah, that's not what
I'm just giving you a hard time. But it's I always find it interesting how people end up in a position. You know, some go through the normal channels. They'll apply on a website, they'll do the LinkedIn, they'll know the person in advance. So I always just find it interesting. But the experience of how that works, it kind of does matter because that's like the first step in being employed or being rejected from a place, right?
Right. That's important too.
Yeah. So tell me about that because that's all part of the payroll component, right?
It sure is. Part of payroll and HR is something called ATS, Applicant Tracking System.
Okay.
And so that's where, you might apply through a website, you can apply through LinkedIn, and then it goes, your resume will go into a portal where somebody will review it and then kind of make a decision off there. It does get a bad rap, right? Because sometimes you're like, oh, the algorithm kicked me out. I'm here to tell you that somebody has to say no to your resume. Now, maybe they looked at it for a very short amount of time, but there's not like any kind of thing that says, hey, we can't hire this person.
Well, I think what it is some of the big box employing websites, they have an algorithm and it says, these are your top tier ones. Mm-hmm. Here's your mid tiers. And just like on Google, if you're not on the front page of the website, you're not going to get seen.
Yeah. So generally they have knockout questions as well. Mm-hmm. So those are the questions, maybe you submit your resume and then they ask you like 5 questions. Mm-hmm. If you don't answer the answer they're looking for, those ones are the ones generally where you get the denial like within a day or so.
Yep.
But almost all the ones like somebody's like looking through it. So there is an algorithm, right? So, I'm sure Google has a huge one, mm-hmm. right? But most of the time, especially in the space that we're in, somebody's looking at that resume and they're saying yes or no to it.
Okay. So what's going on, and should people be using this kind of system?
Yeah. Especially you're a business owner, maybe you're an HR department of one, right? That's a big thing where you're the only person, trying to find or source candidates. It's really good to have, because if you have a manual process where maybe people are submitting job applications or they're walking in or their buddies are calling, things like that, it can get really unorganized very quickly, especially if, maybe you're in a high turnover business. Right, you're a restaurant. Previous episode, we talked about like the recreation center, right, where there's a lot of younger people working there. So having an applicant tracking system that's automated can really make your process smoother and make sure that you don't lose out on those candidates. The other thing about it is that if you have a manual process and maybe you interview somebody and then you don't call them again because you get busy because you're wearing 17 hats. And you kind of ghosted them, it wasn't what you were expecting to do or wanted to do, you can get a bad rap, right? They're going on Glassdoor or they're going on TikTok or they're going on LinkedIn and they're saying, hey, you know what, I applied here and it was not a great experience. So having an ATS where like even the email is not what the candidate wants to hear, but having a customized email where it's like, hey, you didn't fit our requirements for this position, we're going to have to pass on you. Having a little bit more personalized, right? Some of the more modern ones will have, more of the names. You can put more of like the reasons why, things like that. So it's really important to have a system that you customize so it makes it more like your brand.
Yeah. Instead of just, your copy pasted, hey, we found someone whose qualifications match something.
Right.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. Because a lot of times like, I've had many jobs where I've had in the final interview and I didn't get it right. It's down to 3 or 4 people and somebody's just a better fit, right? And it happens. And so the better you can smooth it over and keep contact with the candidate, the better it is for everybody.
Well, and it's just also from the person employing's perspective, they would like to just know, and it's not something personal, but if it's something that they need to work on or if there's an error in their ways, like it can better the experience for everyone. And, again, everyone is left with a smile on their face, you could say.
For sure. So that kind of leads to having a clear hiring cycle, right? So when applications come in, you can even fix the buckets that they come in, right? So they come in and they're in the review. You can send the email response, right? And make it a little bit more, your brand, right? Like, hey, we're screening candidates this week, and we'll make decisions by the end of this week. So if you don't hear from us, we'll let you know early next week where you are in the process, right? Because a lot of times, like you said, they just use the canned response. You're like, oh, you don't match the qualifications. It gives you nothing, right? You don't know what's going on. So even if it's not something you can go and move forward with, if you say, hey, you'll know by 2 weeks from now where we're going, at least somebody knows, right? They know what the process is going to look like. They know what their expectations are. They know to wait for a phone call, right? And so I customizing that email is really, really important. So just taking it out of the box, right, and turning it on and throwing resumes in isn't going to make it successful. Doing customizations and actually working on an applicant track is really, really important. So, sometimes you do get maybe 1,000 job applications, especially, maybe you're a bigger franchise store, you own a bunch of franchises, and you're probably getting, 10, 15, per store per week. Right. So having maybe that second bucket where it's like, hey, unfortunately you don't meet the qualifications might be something that you need. But a lot of times if you have 10 or 20 employees, I really highly suggest a more customized experience for that email to be like, hey, we're not going to go for you this time, but we think you might fit the culture. We're going to keep your resume on file.
And again, that's huge too. Let's say you're a business that is really busy during the summer, right? But you find, an applicant that was really good during the winter, not the best candidate, right? But still, better than your, I guess, average, you could say. For them to know, like, hey, you do fit a lot of our qualifications. If you're interested in the summer, that's really good to know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because maybe you're a seasonal employer, right? Like you said, and you might even leave it open because hey, I'm a seasonal employer. I might get some job applications, but if I have a thing like, hey, our hiring cycle starts in April, so thanks for your resume. We'll review them, starting in April. And then with the modern ones, especially like the one iSolve has, you can set up other emails, right? So it would be, hey, you're a seasonal employer. Maybe in December, say, hey, your resume is on file with us. We're still going to hire in April. Are you still looking for a job? Do you know? And then you can kind of keep that candidate in there, so you kind of keep them warm.
Well, let me ask you something, Brian. So in iSolve, you got these buckets, right? So you could say this group of people were qualified. We didn't end up hiring them. They go into the let's reach out to them in, spring bucket, right? Because you're like, we know a business picks up. So that could just be, hey, email all these people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It
Absolutely.
Sounds really simple.
Yeah. And you don't want to inundate people with email. So that's why you can set the timing. So every month you send email, you can even send text if that's what they prefer. Right. So you can say, hey, we're still going to hire in April. If you're interested in the job, let us know in April. We'll be happy to set you up for an interview.
And it really makes the person working in HR/payrolls job that much easier.
Yep.
One less thing to worry about. Hey, I already have all these candidates in a bucket saved for when I know I'm going to have to do the work in a few months.
Yeah. Same with maybe you're hiring a more permanent position and you have somebody, maybe you had 2 candidates, but you went with one because you like their experience a little bit better, but you have a second one that really fits your company culture. And then you can keep them around in another, your other pool, right? And say, hey, send an email about a month later, like, hey, we really liked you. Sorry, it didn't work out, but are you interested in applying for a different job, or are you still in the job hunts? Right? Maybe they found one, then you can take them out. But having an email, and then when you can set it where it's like every 30 days, you can email, right? And then when they respond, you can say, okay, they're already looking for somebody, or they're still looking, or maybe they have a position, they won't be reached out anymore. You can turn that off, and then they're not a candidate anymore. So, a lot of times clients will get this. They add it, they pick the people they want, they come in for an interview, they hire them. And then the others, they send the mass email out to them like, oh, we're not moving forward. That's not the best way to use the system. It's going through the steps that we kind of talked about to be like, hey, we liked you, but it didn't work out this time. We'll keep your resume around. And then you're really keeping the resume around because you can access it at any time.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add about these applicant tracking systems?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, don't blame the algorithm, right? I mean, unless it's a really big company, but you apply for a job, like one of our clients are using the system, I guarantee somebody's going to look at it. So just, keep your head up and keep swimming if you're out there looking for a job.
And one other thing I want to add, what is your favorite thing about applicant tracking systems?
So I like the fact that it goes from applicant tracking, especially in iSolve, right into onboarding. So if you want to hire somebody, you have a lot of their information. Like you'll have their email, you have their resume. You can click a button and say, oh, this person, we want to hire them. And then it goes straight into iSolve, and then it will send them the onboarding packet and they fill it out. And then when they report for the first day, you're looking at their I-9 and then you're moving on. You don't have to spend any time doing anything else.
So it's a very straightforward process.
Very straightforward. And most people expect it that like, hey, I got hired. I want to fill in paperwork ahead of time. But this even helps you with that. You don't need to collect anything because you already have all the data that you need and they just have to fill it out themselves. So it's great.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks, Mark.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.